International Media TV. Television that listens to you.
Hi, I'm Johnnie Burrell. Welcome to the program.
The Little Rock Nine, back in September of 1957, integrated Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. They had to do so with the National Guard to protect them because the governor of the state did not want them to integrate. The Little Rock Nine was a big impetus for civil rights and also for integration in the United States of America. Listen in on this exclusive interview. Thanks for joining us here at International Media TV. And your history is indelibly printed in U.S. history and world history. But before we get into that, I'd like to find out a little bit about you personally, as much as you'd like to share. What is a day like in the life of Mrs. Minnijean Brown Trickey and Dr. Terrence Roberts?
Okay, you want to go?
No, you're on.
Oh, what do I do day to day? Well, I work with a Bay Area-based group called Sojourn to the Past, and it has been in operation for 14 years. We take high school students on an interactive history experience through the South, stopping at major points, meeting absolutely fascinating players, including Congressman John Lewis, the brother of Emmett Till, the parents of Denise McNair, who was one of the 4 little girls. So they meet me and I participate with them for 10 days. So that's what I do sometimes. Other times I'm a motivational speaker, trainer, facilitator, anti-oppression, anti-racism. I'm a gardener extraordinaire. That's what I do.
I am primarily, at this point, doing a lot of work with groups of police officers around anti-racism activities. We find in Southern California, for instance, that a number of police in various and sundry jurisdictions don't understand their role vis-a-vis people of color. So they tend to treat people of color somehow, well, put it blandly, differently than they treat people who are not of color. That work keeps me occupied. I go to a place called the Museum of Tolerance. We have a senior leadership institute. And remarkably, the responses over the years have been very consistent. So I don't know that we're doing that much in terms of changing attitudes, but we keep doing it anyway. My favorite thing to do, though, is talk to my grandsons. 2 of them live in Marietta, Georgia. I'm worried about them because they live in Marietta, Georgia. I've encouraged the parents to think about moving to Southern California. Not that that's any kind of nirvana, mind you, because young black boys get killed in Los Angeles as well as they do in Georgia. But I think somehow I would feel a little better if they were closer to me.
Wonderful. And also, I think you sing at weddings and funerals?
I do weddings and funerals. I love to sing. I've been singing all my life. In fact, I saw this August Wilson play where there's a character in there who says, everybody has a song, and you need to find your song. That's me, looking for my song.
When most people think of the civil rights and iconic moments, Brown versus the Board of Education comes up in 1954, and then the March on Washington in 1963. And sandwiched right in there in 1957 is the story of the Little Rock Nine and your role in desegregating Central High School in Little Rock. How do you feel your place in history is set?
Well, it's hard to figure out, actually, because we don't have any control over that. Other people determine how Little Rock fits into that pantheon. I've talked to various and sundry people around the world, many of whom place Little Rock pretty much at the center of what was going on. Other people have no clue what happened in Little Rock. So there's that wide continuum. So it's up to the observer how we are seen.
And your thoughts?
Well, I was a historian, was doing a lecture at a conference, and he said Little Rock desegregation crisis was not considered part of the civil rights movement because it wasn't direct action. And I said, it might not have been direct action on the first day, but when I decided to go on the second day, it was definitely direct action. So it's, I mean, it was the second event televised in the modern
what do
civil
you
rights.
think he meant by that? Not
Well,
direct action?
you know, part of that is this sense that somebody pulled us, forced us, made us, directed us,
That's direct action.
and that it wasn't that. But what he meant, I think, was that it was somebody else who had us do that. And I said, no, we chose ourselves, and we made those decisions on our own. So therefore, to me, it was direct action.
Right.
But I mean, this is just the kind of debate that goes on about. But it was the second televised event. The first was the Montgomery bus boycott. So television was in its infancy when the governor called out the National Guard to stop us. The whole world media flew to Little Rock. So the images went everywhere. They went around the world. And so it's that I think it's both significant because it's the most U.S. history ever. And the other thing is it was televised.
The importance of media. You know, speaking of media, guns, soldiers, that sort of thing, you all were teenagers. How were you emotionally and mentally prepared for the experience?
I didn't know that we were that prepared for it. It sort of all happened. I don't think anybody in Little Rock knew exactly what was going to happen. Everybody was caught off guard and by surprise. But one thing was consistent, and that was the spirit of opposition to this whole enterprise. The fact that we were not supposed to be there was the uppermost thought in the mind of most people. And they came out in droves to give some presence to that thought. They intended to put their bodies between us and the schoolhouse door, much like the governor down in Alabama did, old George Wallace. But these were not elected officials. These were just ordinary citizens who thought they were doing the right thing.
And you can't prepare for something that hasn't happened. That, I think, is what I know more as I grow older. There was no model for that, for how we were to be. We had no model to tell us how to be, what to do. And so I think we managed to just keep going. And I think that has to be an important way of thinking about it. Nobody knew it was going to happen the way it did, so we can't analyze it from back here and say what should have happened, what ought to have happened, because it happened in the way that it did. We were unprepared, but then we got our little stuff together and decided to keep going. That's really, I think,
And keeping going, keeping on, keeping on, as they say. Were there any personal heroes that you had, maybe even among your local community leaders, your family, or nationally, that you basically got your inspiration from during the day-to-day, going back and forth, dealing with mental?
Well, not any one person. Not any one person, but certainly family members, neighbors, friends, strangers even. Anybody who had this notion that what we were experiencing was absolutely wrong, and who gave voice to those sentiments, who sounded helpful, who offered help, those were the people that inspired me to keep going.
Mrs. Trickey, your maiden name is Brown. Are you related to the family in Brown versus the Board of Education, or did you have a special affinity about that family name?
No, I think that's a slave name, okay? Brown. We were brown, black, white, gray, green, whatever. That's my family name, and I didn't have any relationship to the Brown family in Topeka, Kansas. But people often ask me that, so.
So I'm in line with...
Yes, you are. That makes sense. It totally does.
And I noticed that you graduated from high school in New York, according to some of the readings that I saw, and that basically you were expelled from Central High School for dropping...
No, I was expelled from Central High School for telling a group of 5 girls to leave me alone, white trash, after they made my heels red and bleeding and threw things on me for about a week, and then finally threw to hit me with a purse with 6 combination locks in it. And the rule was if a teacher didn't see it, it didn't happen. Nobody saw the purse, nobody saw the girls, but a teacher did see me say, "Leave me alone, white trash." And they wanted me to go anyway, so that was good enough. I didn't keep the purse because I wasn't very smart, so I had no evidence of the attack. And so consequently, they got rid of me, and they wanted me to go. They did. And I guess before I even got out of the school, they had cards printed that said 1 down, 8 to go. So I was the one they got rid of first, and they were hoping to get rid of everybody else in time, in line. So yes. So then I went to a school in New York City, a private progressive school, where I graduated. But yeah, the other part of that story is at the end of that school year, one graduate, Ernest Green, but then they closed the high schools the next year, so all the students had to go someplace else or figure out another way to finish his or her education.
And so basically, the closing of the high school was a determination by the governor at that time that you weren't going to graduate from Central High School, or just a way to stop desegregation?
That was his ploy.
Yeah.
He, like other governors at that time, decided that closing the schools was probably the most effective way to keep black kids out of what they considered to be white-only space.
Wow. You know, and it's really, you know, as I'm listening to you, I still feel the pain of that experience. It just seems so unbelievable that only a few years ago here in the United States of America, we as a people were so unwelcome that people would mistreat you as you were mistreated. My original question was, well, did you have a little bit of a temper, or was it the mistreatment that caused you to react? And as you gave the explanation, I think it was more of
exasperation.
Yes.
Just being totally exasperated. I don't think that I'm the only one of the Little Rock Nine who may have responded in some way to the terrorism that was part of our everyday experience. So what I tell young people is you can make a mistake, and that was a mistake. The mistake was thinking that somebody observed the attack on me, and that would have balanced out my response. But the way that it was framed always was, if a teacher didn't see it, it didn't happen. So that worked very well. As a matter of fact, you can edit this out. In the Eisenhower papers, an Arkansas National Guard doesn't see the purse coming at my head, but sees me picking up the purse and then dropping it back onto the floor. So that selective vision. I mean, every time I think about it, sometimes I'm just horrified about how many people collude to selectively remember. So he does not claim to have seen the purse flying through the air, but he saw me pick it up. And it's in the Eisenhower papers, so you're like, wow. It was even worse than you could imagine. I mean, now that I'm older and can analyze it,
As a teenager, there's an adult who refuses to see the truth.
Yes.
And he saw the truth, but he didn't speak the truth.
right. So,
That's amazing, that to have that kind of pressure. And that was a very human response that you had of defending yourself.
well, I think we're pretty careful. We didn't do anything because we're under perpetual surveillance. But if theoretically, if we did anything, apparently they couldn't see a lot of the stuff that was being done to us. But we were really under a microscope at all times.
And Dr. Roberts, are there any moments that you had like that you'd care to talk about?
Well, as Minnijean said, we were all resisting in ways that we had to use because, and in my instance, it was about being forced into a corner. Now, we had taken a vow of nonviolence going in. We were not going to fight back for obvious reasons on the one hand because the odds were too great, but more than that, because nonviolence puts you on a higher moral plane, and yet, when you're in those situations and somebody's beating you up, there's a tendency to want to respond. So on a few occasions I did. In fact, I write about one such occasion in a book I did, a memoir, Lessons from Little Rock. In the book I describe the details of what happened, but in short, I was being harassed in PE. I was the only black kid and about 40 or 50 other white kids, and I caught hell. One day the coach brought us all together. We were standing around in a little semicircle, and he said, "Boys, I'm sick and tired of you sneaking up behind Roberts and doing these things to him. You're all a bunch of cowards. If you were not cowards, if you were truly men, you wouldn't sneak up on him like that. You'd challenge him face to face to the mat." Then he points to the wrestling mat. Now at that point I'm thinking, Coach, this is not something I'm really agreeable to, and yet they all lined up, all these kids lined up. And I thought to myself, Terry Roberts, you're about to die, because they had murder in their eyes. So my choice at that point was to kill the first kid in line. So the first kid to come after me, I was going to kill him before they kill me. So it would be 2 people dead at least that day. Turns out he came at me, and so I was so committed to this enterprise that I got him down in a headlock, and he'd worn a set of military dog tags with a metal chain, which I quickly seized as an instrument to restrict his air supply. And that kid was choking to death. He was turning blue and gasping, and then the coach finally came to his senses, and he came over and said, "Okay, look, that's enough, break it up." So he broke it up. But that was kind of how things went on occasion in that school.
That sounds like a very brutal environment.
Well, it was sort of, to me, it was like a Malcolm X position to take. See, Malcolm's position was, we'll try and do this peacefully. Ballots, if possible, but bullets, if necessary. So that was my bullets if necessary day.
Amazing, amazing. Speaking of today, we have a black president, and many people have talked about a post-racial America, but I think that's been muted quite a bit when you look at the situation of the police killing unarmed black men like Walter Scott, most recently of South Carolina, Michael Brown of Ferguson, and of course here in Oakland, Oscar Grant. And what would you say is the state of race relations in America today?
Well, I would say we wouldn't use that term, race relations, because it's not about relations. It's about the state of being in this country where some people feel that it is their God-given right to assassinate young black men. Now, my hunch is, and I don't have any proof for this whatsoever, but my intuition tells me that a lot of these young black men are stand-ins for Obama. They can't get to Obama to kill him, but they can kill this fellow because he's nearby. And part of that thinking on my part comes from the fact that since Obama has been president, the hate traffic on the web has gone up exponentially. Threats have been made. The general public is unaware of the amount of threats that the FBI and the Secret Service has had to deal with since Obama's been in office. He's been a target since day one. And ergo, we have now stand-ins all over the country who are getting gunned down in the name of, we don't like this. And even this new candidate on the Republican side, Rand Paul, the other day was giving voice to that sentiment, we've got to take back our country. Code words for we've got to put black people in their place, yet once again.
And the response to the protests, for instance, in Ferguson, is to kill even more, and more blatantly and more openly, and a 12-year-old, and to say, you're not going to stop us, you're not going to stop us. And then the behavior of the New York police to switch the narrative to them rather than to the victims. So we're playing it. It is an amazing game that is horrifically tragic. And the victims are, of course, young people of color. So what is the state? There's been no change in the number killed, or it's just that it's more public. And there's a cartoon of a young man being beaten by a police person, and there are all these cameras clicking. And Gil Scott-Heron says the revolution will be televised. Oh yes, it is being televised, and it needs to be. So on Facebook, Ava DuVernay said it's not illegal to film police.
And it's not.
And they've always tried to behave as if it was illegal behavior, but it's not. So keep those cameras out, people, because that's the only way that it's going to.
It won't be like what you experienced where a National Guard ignored something.
Right.
Because
It's
the camera
visible.
doesn't blink.
It's visible.
The camera doesn't blink.
So I'm all for phone cameras and what people are doing.
As the civil rights movement, one of the things that you see, the characteristics, is the importance of youth. And these days, as young people are stepping forward with Black Lives Matter, what messages or what could you tell the young people from the lessons that you experienced as the Little Rock Nine that could help them, that could spur them on or redirect them?
Well, I think one thing I would say right away is this is an ongoing fight that has been going on for centuries. It is the kind of thing that young people have to know. They have to know that this is not new. They have to know also that they cannot think that by engaging in whatever activity they choose, that is going to be the thing that stops the violence. The violence has been here well before they were born and will be here well after they're gone, given my take on the historical record. See, there's nothing in the historical record that suggests that change is imminent. Nobody has come up with some kind of plan or any kind of a plan to say we're on the road to change. Why? Because there's a great deal of resistance to that. You see, there are people in this society who profit by maintaining the status quo. What would be the incentive for giving that up?
Exactly. And with that, you mentioned violence. And as we think about the fact that there is this opposition, rightfully so, against the police and government killing defenseless Black people, what do you say to young people to encourage them to maybe adjust also in their campaign that Black lives matter to each other, that they should be concerned about the next Black person and not leave off the table the issue about Black on Black violence? Any words for that?
Do we call, when white people kill each other, do we call it white on white violence? I mean, yes, it's a tragedy because we don't want that to happen. That's if I were to try to say, what is the meaning of Black on Black violence? Violence. We don't want that to happen. We don't want to kill each other. Yet, we're not modeling peace. We're not modeling nonviolence. But are there any gun factories in Oakland? Do you produce guns and distribute them? They say that guns don't kill people, people kill people, but in places where there's regulation, in places where there's sanity and regulation, guns nor people are killing people to the extent that they are in these United States. So I don't.
No, I agree completely with that. When you think about it, violence is part of our DNA. The state of Arkansas was admitted to the Union in 1836. The following year, 1837, the Speaker of the House killed a fellow legislator with a Bowie knife, stabbed him to death right there in public. A jury was assembled, a court case convened, the verdict, justifiable homicide. Had he not opened his mouth, he would have been alive today, was the thinking. Violence has been so woven into who we are today that when you say violence, most often the mind goes to people who are outside the establishment. But most of the violence comes from inside the establishment. When you talk about violence in the streets, we have to look first to the police. They have the big guns and all of the artillery. We could do something very differently with our young people if we modeled, as Minnijean said, peaceful living rather than violent encounters.
Thank you. Well, you're speaking as part of the Barbara Lee and Elihu Harris Speakers Series. What are some of the key messages that you're going to leave with the audience?
Well, we've been inspired by young people who are learning, real learning about nonviolence in Martin Luther King Freedom Center. That's inspiring to me. I need to see that. I need to hear. I need to participate, enact, act, be a part of. So that's inspiring to me. What is my message? Yeah, we have to, to me, nonviolence is the strongest force in that very strange word when we talk about force. But I was thinking about it as a wave of peace that could just come over us all. Now, it's going to be hard with so few people thinking about nonviolence as a way of life. But it can be a way of life, and it must be a way of life. I think Dr. King said, nonviolence, the truth is, my friend, it's either nonviolence or non-existence. And if we look here, if we look there, if we look around the world, we can see the cost of violence. It's untold death and destruction, untold disruption. Is this the world we want to live in? So I'm grateful for these 20 young people who are talking about it, attempting to live it, because it's important to me and it's meaningful to the world.
I think for me, the message I want to leave with the audience tonight is that unless we develop a true understanding of who we are and who we have been, we have no way of addressing the issues that we face today. So I'm going to take them on sort of a historical ride and show them how we have developed a country that exists on the foundational principles of mythological concepts. We teach young people these myths, and we expect them to go according to Hoyle, to live according to the dictates of the status quo. We have to change that if we want to have a future.
Now, there have been a number of stories and books, films, lectures about the Little Rock Nine. And I'm just wondering if there's anything additional in the story that needs to be told, that hasn't been told, that you'd like to share?
Talk about your book. I think that's...
Well, yes, some of the stories that haven't been told have been written down by me and others. The one book I mentioned earlier, Lessons from Little Rock. I have a second book called Simple, Not Easy, Reflections on Social Responsibility community and tolerance. And in that book, I urge the readers to become engaged in civic activity, to vote at least, but more than that, to become activists in trying to assist other human beings to also get involved. Because without everybody being involved, nothing really gets done. So, you know, perhaps one of the untold messages is that there were just 9 of us. That's significant, because there were more than 9 black students in Little Rock at that time. We could have been 100, 200, 300 strong, who knows? But there were only 9. So there has to be some message out there that says more people need to be actively engaged.
But a lot was done with those 9 people, too. So a seed makes a big difference.
Yes, yes, you can't deny that, indeed. And more seeds, more gets done.
Exactly. You know, it's been absolutely wonderful having the opportunity to talk to you and just to find out some of your personal experiences, and just, you know, there were very nice moments of just one-on-one human experience. And I'm just wondering, is there anything else in this moment in time as we're talking that you'd like to add or share, that maybe something I didn't ask, but you're wanting to talk about?
I thought your questions were great.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more to add, actually.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
This is fun, the 2 of us, actually. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
For me, it is.
Thank you.
I've admired him my whole life.
We're on stage not often enough
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
Well, we hope from this broadcast that maybe you'll be on stage together more often, because you're absolutely a dynamic duo. Thank you.
So the office will roll in.
Yeah, right.
I hope so.
Well, thanks for this.
Okay.
This was great.
All righty.